tout le monde. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the
Good afternoon.
webinar. Bonjour tout le monde. Bienvenue au webinaire sur les équipements de nettoyage des semences.
So welcome to this webinar on seed cleaning equipment. First things first, you will need to pick a language if you want to hear this workshop in English or in French. You simply choose the interpretation button at the bottom right of the screen, the globe icon, and then you pick, presumably you will pick English. Well, you may want to pick French. You can also click mute original audio if you don't want to hear the original language. And that may be necessary if there are questions or other presentations in French.
You just need to click on the interpretation button at the bottom of the screen and mute your the original audio. If you are joining by phone, you will not see the slides. And I believe you will. You do not have the option of choosing interpretation, unless one of my co-facilitators tells me otherwise.
Yeah. Get her number.
And I will.
Why wouldn't you have it for?
Okay, mute everyone. I want to take a minute to acknowledge that we are on ancestral and unceded territories. I am myself in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal, home of the Kanien'kehá:ka people. And we want to cultivate a safe space. So if we want to create a supportive environment and we want all the presenters to feel valued and respected. There's different ways to engage with this webinar. You can put your questions in the chat box. You can raise your hand and then unmute yourself towards the end of the webinar when we'll have a period of questions and answers. And you're also welcome to start your video so that we can see the participants. On this note, I will invite my colleague David, joining us from the Salish Coast in BC, to share us his experience with the mobile seed cleaner.
Okay, thanks, Hugo. Yeah, I'm gonna just try to whip through these slides. Hugo, you can, I guess, move them for me, so you can go on to the next slide.
And David, if you could just provide a bit of context behind this conversation, why it's an important conversation to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
And perhaps introduce the other speakers as well.
Okay, sure. Yeah, sorry. It also just mentioned to everybody who's here, if you can make sure you're muted. There's a few people coming in with a lot of background noise, so we're trying to mute you from our end, but it's easiest if you just stay muted. Yeah, so welcome. This is I'm really excited to do this. I feel like I've been presenting about seed cleaning equipment a fair bit lately, and we have some great, I think we've got a good collection of information for you here. So I'm going to be presenting about a mobile seed cleaning trailer that we've developed over the last few years out in British Columbia, with some pieces of equipment that they're purchased and some are built. So I'm going to talk a bit about this mobile seed cleaning trailer. So you can skip to the next slide. This was a project we started in 2018. We built one trailer with a number of pieces of equipment on, and we just wanted to see sort of how much use it would get. It was a great means of engaging with the seed cleaning community. And we were just curious to see how much use it would get. So in 2019, over the years, sort of 2018 to 2020, we drove it around the province, and we ended up cleaning well over 100,000 pounds of seeds with it, probably 30 different individual farmers and lots of seeds. And we had really great feedback. So we got some funding last year to actually create 3 more trailers and try to spread them around the province. So that is what we're now in the process of doing. I'm just going to quickly go through some of the pieces of equipment that are on the trailer. So you can go to the next slide, Hugo. This is just a picture of the trailer set up at a farm. It's got lots of little things, totes, Rubbermaid totes, air compressors. The original one had box fans on it. So you can see in this setup here, there's a whole lot of totes and a box fan to do some cleaning. This is, of course, before we got the new trailer and the Winnow wizards. So you can go on to the next slide. This was a piece of equipment. I wanted to include this in here. This one we've actually removed from the trailer, but it's this was something that we had some engineering students build for us. And it was an interesting experience in a DIY or build your own equipment. It's really great if you have people with the expertise to build something like this, but they also actually need to be seed cleaners and seed growers to really understand some of the intricacies of what you need to build into your design. So while the design was good and it was very inexpensive to build, this is a reverse air separator, it was really hard to see the seeds and actually do the cleaning. So with a little bit of tweaking, this model might be fine. If the bucket at the bottom was transparent, that probably would have been a lot better. You can go on to the next slide, Hugo.
Can you just indicate, David, what kind of seed is this meant for?
This would be for dry seeded crops. So actually all of the equipment we have on the seed trailer is for cleaning seeds that are already dry. We don't have any wet seeded extracted seed.
Noted, thank you.
So yeah, you can go on to the next one. And this is, people have probably seen this on the internet. It's called the Zigzag Cleaner. We put some designs up on our website. And it's, again, it's an air separator that works relatively well. You can see down below the seeds that came out of the good side and out of the bad side. There's definitely some decent separation there. And go to the next slide. This is the next version up of an air separator. In my opinion, this one works almost as well as fairly expensive purchased air separators. And it's really easy to use and simple. You can see on the right-hand side, there's a large clear container that all your chaff falls in. And then on the white bucket, just under the narrow tube is where your good seeds fall out. And there's some controllers to control the level of suction and the level of feeding that makes it quite effective. You can go on to the next slide. So this was the largest piece of purchased equipment we have in the trailer. This is a Clipper AGM 224 model. So it is 2 screens, like a dual screen system. And then it also has some air separation in it. This was a fellow from an indigenous run hemp organization, hemp farm that I think they cleaned about 40,000 pounds of hemp seeds with this machine over the course of a few days. You can go on to the next slide. This is the small model that we have. It's exactly like the Clipper A224, except it's small size. It's incredibly, the price difference is not even that far off compared to that big metal piece of equipment and this one. This one works great we found for smaller lots of like carrot seed. It seems to do a pretty good job on, but the system's the same. It's dual screen with a bit of air separation. You can go on to the next slide, and you can actually go right past this one. This is the Winnow wizard, and we're going to hear all about this from Mark later on or next. This was the piece of equipment that was really lacking in the first trailer. We would show up to events and we'd have all this equipment to clean people's seeds, and they'd show up with their bags full of beans on the stalks and plants, you know, all like seed on the plants themselves dried. And of course, to clean those seeds in any sort of air separation, you have to thresh it first. It wasn't easy to find a small scale thresher. There's not a whole lot in North America. This was imported from Japan. It's called a Sassagawanaki Tsr Thresher. We added a motor to it. We will be adding a variac to it so you can reduce the speed on the motor, which should, we had some issues with it shattering dried beans, certain varieties. So turning down the speed should help with that. And yeah, you can go on to the next slide. And this is, again, this is it set up at a farm. So our challenge now is actually how to share this equipment in the long term. Of course, there's always refining of equipment and you know, finding new equipment that people need. And there's going to be ongoing repairs and maintenance to equipment as the stuff gets used more and more. We have one of them on Vancouver Island that's seeing a lot of use. And again, our next task is going to be how we have this equipment be a shared piece of equipment throughout the province, not necessarily owned by any one person. You can go on to the last slide, Hugo. We did try to make the price of the trailers and stuff available. This was, of course, this is like 2 years ago, so the price has probably gone up 20% based on materials and stuff. But this is sort of the Canadian price of what this the one of the trailers cost with this equipment in it. And what we've found, we started to crunch some numbers and try to think through things like replacement reserve for the equipment. How much would we need to collect each year to cover just general maintenance, insurance, repair and maintenance, and then eventual replacement into the future. You know, when we first look at it, it's looking like maybe $4,000 or $5,000 a year. And again, thinking through, this is a 20-year project. Some of these pieces will need to be replaced by then. So we're trying to figure out how to capture those funds ahead of time and make sure that this can be used by lots of people ongoing. So that is now our biggest challenge. And with that, I think I'll pass it on to the next speaker. And unless we want to do questions and answers in between, but I think maybe we'll wait for the end of that.
Sure, we can wait to the end. And since I have no news of Thomas, I will let Mark Luterra join in and invite him to share his screen.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Mark Luterra. I've worked for Wild Garden Seed in Oregon since 2014, and during that time I've developed the Winnow Wizard. So I never imagined I would be developing a winnowing machine. I started out, my background's actually microbiology and engineering, and I was really tired of pipetting, and a position opened up at Wild Garden Seed and I took it. I thought it would just be sort of a summer job in 2014, but I ended up doing more engineering and irrigation and really enjoying it. And we got into the fall season, and this is how we winnowed at Wild Garden: 300-pound lots, 500-pound lots. And Frank on the right there, Frank Morton, had discovered that if you winnow behind a box fan, you get a more even airflow than in front of a box fan. And that's true. But I was assigned this 300-pound lot of Persian cress, and I was standing there, you know, 8 hours of manual winnowing or something, and my hand was real sore, my wrist was sore. I'm trying to be a perfectionist, and it just seemed like not an optimum solution. And so my thought was, how do I improve this in a simple way? And so I basically set about using the manual winnowing process, but starting to automate or mechanize some of it. And my insight was, having worked in microbiology, we use these laminar flow hoods that use a grating in front of a blower to make an even flow of air. So I thought, what if I put a screen in front of a fan? And that did, it evened it out quite a bit. This was the first monstrosity. It was supposed to be 2 layers, and they're supposed to catch the seed in the middle, and it kind of worked. So for a while, this was sort of like Mark's machine, and I played with it, and other people thought that winnowing by hand was still better. But eventually people sort of came around, and then they told me, that basically I feel like I'm just an arm now. It needs a hopper, it needs an automatic feed. And so I kept adding things to it. And then once it was sitting there winnowing, and we could, screen, and so essentially cut out half of our seed cleaning labor time, then suddenly everyone wanted to use one. And so the wish list for prototype 2 was like more even airflow, stronger airflow. And so then I added this furnace blower, squirrel cage blower, and a few more things. And now it has actually 5 screens in series, up to 5 screens, depending on the speed setting. And the result of that, so it creates a pressure differential across each of these screens, and that the air then flows evenly through all of the holes. And so by the time it flows through the last one, it's a very even laminar flow of air that can perform some fairly precise density separations. And so here, for example, we're looking at lettuce, and the heaviest, nice white clean seed in the middle, a little bit of chaff and smaller greener seed, and then leafy material on the right. And it's designed so you can divide it into three density fractions if you want. Another thing we can do is, if there's material like dirt that's heavier than the seed, this is beet seed, can actually blow the seed out of the dirt. Call it overwinnowing. And so then a short 3-4 years later, then after that 2014 picture, this is the wild garden seed greenhouse, where everyone, instead of having a box fan, has a Winnow wizard at their station. And company's gotten a little smaller since then. I think we're down to 2 for the company, but you can have multiple running at the same time. This was actually the first one that I built for someone else. This was in, I think, 2016, went to Nash Huber up in Sequim, Washington. I didn't imagine it was going to be a business until people started wanting to buy them, and then it sort of evolved that direction. And so now they get shipped out across the US and Canada. They get crated up like this. Before I talk about this vacuum, I am going to show a few videos of the Winnow wizard. So the way that I typically winnow seed, it goes through the machine twice in the process of cleaning. Before there's been too much screening, just after the big material is gone, I'll do what I would call a rough winnow. This is a rough winnow on spinach. You can see there's quite a lot of debris in the seed still. The agitator is just keeping it moving so it can, rough material can flow through the hopper. The hopper gate here is quite wide open, and then this feed slot, which is also adjustable width by that stack of magnets, is also wide. So we're moving material through the machine as quickly as possible. And this divider is set quite conservatively, so that there's some chaff still falling in front of it, but everything that falls behind it is chaff, little immature hollow seeds, and basically getting something that's 95% clean. And then this we will screen, top screen, bottom screen, to get out any residual large and small, and then we will fine winnow it. This is an example of a fine winnow. It's obviously not spinach. This is a brassica, but The hopper gate is open just slightly, so it's a slower process. I'd say about maybe 1/2 to 1/4 the throughput. This will winnow at high speed. It'll winnow about 300 pounds an hour. On a fine winnow, it's probably more like 100 pounds an hour. And this slot is now very narrow. So, and by the way, I'm pausing the video, so it's not just a choppy connection, but so it's dropping a very narrow curtain of seed here, which through the laminar airflow, you can see it curves. It ends up about 1 inch wide at the bottom. And now we're just shaving off the lightest seed, the lightest, which is a mixture of grass seeds and some residual, a little bit of residual chaff, and then damaged brassica seeds that have been hit by seed weevils, mostly in our case. They've been sort of chewed in half or had a hole bitten in them, and they mostly winnow out here. And so you can end up with a pretty high quality seed from the final winnow. The last video I want to show you is not actually winnowing at all. These are tepary beans. And one time Frank went to a big quinoa cleaning facility in California and was impressed by the machine that they called the de-stoner. And it uses an electromagnetic field to get the rocks and dirt out of seed. And so we were looking at that thing, what would the poor man's version of this look like? And I just bought the strongest magnets that I could get a hold of, rare earth magnets. And if you have sufficiently magnetic soil, which we do in the Northwest, is volcanic soil, it turns out that the dirt is magnetic and will be deflected by a magnet. So this batch of tepary beans, there's no wind blowing here. And so these magnets are just deflecting the dirt backward. And then I've got the divider set so the tepary beans are falling on one side and the dirt is falling on the other. It removes, I'd say, 80–90% of dirt in one pass. And I think this lot we actually ran twice to get a lot of the dirt out. But the dirt will not winnow out of heavy seed like beans. And so you need some other method to remove it. I'm just going to ask here, am I out of time, or can I talk about this vacuum for 3 minutes or 4 minutes?
I think go for it, Mark.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the other motor you'll hear running in the wild garden greenhouse, aside from the Winnow Wizard these days, is off in the shop vac. And this is not my invention. This is Frank's discovery from many years ago, and it's been sort of an informal secret of wild garden seed for many years. But he decided that it's time for people to know about it. So we suck a lot of seed through a shop vac, quinoa seeds and sorrel and beets, and what it does is a little bit like a belt thresher, but the seed moves through the tube at high velocity and then abrades against the side of the tube and the inside of the vacuum, which will knock seeds out of their packets and or husks. So it'll knock seeds off of attached sticks, break up clusters of seeds. The trick here is first to tie the tube in a knot like this. And
can you, Mark, we can't see that slide. I'm not sure if that's the slide of the vacuum.
We can see the end of the video, but I think you need to go back to your slide.
Oh, interesting. That's here we go. Can you see it now?
Correct.
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. Sorry about that. So anyway, the trick is one of the tricks is to tie the tube in a knot like this, and then Frank also discovered you can put this is a traction pad that you would put on steps to keep them from being slippery or icy. And it's the rubberized kind, not the sandpaper kind, but that's on the deflector inside and then also on the wall. So when the seed enters the vacuum, the body of the vacuum, it gets abraded against this one more time. And It actually matters what size tube you use. The larger tube is a gentler threshing action because the velocity for a given size of motor anyway, the velocity is lower. And so for things like sorrel that are somewhat easily damaged, the large tube will get them out of their packets nicely. For stuff like quinoa that is really difficult to damage, using a small tube is much more effective. But it turns out that on a small scale, at least, lots up to 200 pounds or so, a shop vac is a very useful seed cleaning tool. And I would recommend that if you have one, try it, see what it can do for you. You might be surprised. And I think that is the end for me. Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mark. I think Hugo, do we have our guest from France here?
I understand finally what happened. The time change in Canada has shifted the timing for Thomas. So it's 5:30 and he should be joining in about 15 minutes. So I suggest that we open the floor for questions or for conversation to you and to Mark. And I propose that you and Mark start with comments or questions between each other, and then people will start joining in. And when Thomas is on, I'll turn the webinar to him.
Sure. I'm wondering if there are any. I haven't been seeing the chat, but if there's any specific questions for either myself or Mark, feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand or unmute yourself. Where did you source the mesh for the winnower is a question. Is that a question for Mark? Do you mean the screens that go in the Winnow Wizard?
Yes. They come from several locations. Most of them, until recently, I got from a large place called Online Metals. Has them in different sizes. The smallest hole the screen I get from a place called Consolidated Mill Supply in Tennessee. Now I get them prefabricated by a little small open source company called OpenWorks in Wisconsin. But I should mention that the plans for the Winnow Wizard. So it's an open source design. So Luterra.com, I'll put it in here in the chat. But anyway,
we can add that.
The plans are online and it will tell you where the materials come from. And if you want to build your own, you can. And then I see a question, is the Wizard vibrator just a small fan? What vibrates the feed tray is actually a small fan motor that is just has the shaft off balance a little bit.
Okay, I see there's a question in the chat. Somebody has asked how dry is dry? I'm assuming that means for cleaning seed. The drier the better is kind of how I'd say. Really, really dry. As dry as you can get your seeds, you probably get better cleaning.
I also see a question about zinnias there, and yes, a fully dried ripe zinnia seed head. We just run the whole head through the shop vac, and it actually does a nice job of knocking the petals off of the ray seed and breaking the whole thing up so it's cleanable without getting so many small pieces as you do if you were to stomp on it. And so it's actually easier to clean that way, we've found.
Okay, I see there's the question here about, I'm not sure I fully understand, regarding funding for another seed cleaner with the GOC, I'm guessing that's Government of Canada, or some faction not want to foot the bill for a food security builder. So we've had some great support from the Ministry of Agriculture in BC. They did flip the bill for lots of this equipment, but we're trying to think of it as a 20-year resource, not now we've got the equipment, let's just use it till it's finished. It needs to have a method of moving around and getting to different people, and somebody has to organize that, and it needs repairs and maintenance all the ongoing. So there's lots of questions in here. Mark, do you think an antique fanning mill used for grain would be reasonably adapted for smaller vegetable seeds?
I don't have a good answer on that, having not used an antique fanning mill, so I'm going to punt on that one.
Okay, there's one here specifically about calendula. Do you have a good recommendation of best ways to separate viable and good germinating versus bad germinating seed?
The Winnow Wizard does really well with calendula. Calendula makes basically 3 different types of seed in the same head, and so definitely screening it and separating it by size before winnowing is essential, because the big seeds are actually have the wings and they fly farther. So you want to screen out the big seeds and winnow those, and then separately winnow the small seeds and blow out the lightest part of each of the size fractions.
And then there's a question, best cleaner for lettuce. I'd say the Winnow Wizard does a pretty good job. The air separator works well for me too.
Yeah, Winnow Wizard does well on lettuce. There are tricks in the Winnow Wizard manual in terms of winnowing flat seeds, because they spread more, and so you can sort of play with the probability and winnow multiple times to get them to fall in front of the divider. The other thing I say about lettuce is 1/26 by half-inch slot herringbone pattern screen is the magic screen for lettuce. But using the right screen is important to that those little thin seeds will fall through.
Any advice you have to extract radish seed without a belt thresher? How does that vacuum work?
Not well. We drive on radish seed with a truck on tarps. When we grow radish seed, it works. It makes a lot of debris. It's not super efficient. If we did a lot of radish, we would probably have a belt thresher.
I have put radish through a modified wood chipper before that was modified to be a thresher, and it works. It worked much better than anything else that I've used so far. But I haven't used a belt thresher. I dream of them for radish seeds. There's a question, how many
David?
Yeah.
Can you provide some context? Why is it difficult to get a belt thresher? Is it expensive or?
Well, I mean, the ones I've seen in North America, yeah, are they're big and expensive. I don't know if people have seen small scale ones. And if people don't, anybody who hasn't grown radish seed or tried to get the seed out, the seed pods, they're almost like styrofoamy, and they're a bit of a challenge to open up and get the seeds out. I've definitely found with that question before, how dry is dry? Like for radish seed, drier. As dry as you can get it, it really helps open it up. You're muted.
Mark, have you seen some belt threshers for smaller or mid-scale seed companies in the Northwest?
Me, not personally. Wild Garden Seed had one that was too large for our operation that we sold to a farm in Montana, and they're making use of it. But no, I haven't seen a good small one.
Yeah, the thresher we got, the Sassagawanaki Tsr works okay. I did put some radish seed through. It works okay. It just doesn't, you just don't get all the seed out, I think, and probably a belt thresher would be better for that. There's a question about how many screens the AGM 224 comes with, or you order the screen separately, and there's a huge list of screen sizes. I think we have about 20 to 30 screens in the trailers, and we're actually right now just ordering a few extra screens that are specific for some farmers that have used it, and they're requesting certain size screens. So there's lots of options. What's good for sunflower heads? Who here grows sunflowers? I'm happy for anybody to answer that. guessing the Winnow wizard could probably do a good job of separating it once you've got it off the heads. There is a question. What's the average cost of building or buying any of these seed cleaners? At least the Winnow wizard or the hemp seed cleaner. So the hemp seed cleaner, the one I'd shown, that was the large one. That is, I believe, about $8,000, the Clipper 224. The reverse air separator that I had shown that I built, 6 years ago, that was only probably $600 in parts and 10 hours to build, but I skimped out on some parts, and I would estimate between $2,000 to $3,000 in parts if you want to do a really good job of it. And I believe if you go to the Luterra site, there's some information about the costs of the Winnow wizard, as well as I guess do you build your own?
Yeah, it's on the order form. I also just posted it here in the chat.
There's a question about the shop vac. Does light materials such as petals blow out the exhaust hole? Is there any risk of lighter seed going out the exhaust hole?
No, because it still has the filter. And so that, that'll take out then the filter will clog up with dust and you'll have to clean it. And ideally, maybe there'd be a way to use a different filter for some screens, but with the filter installed, nothing blows out.
Okay. Any advice for working with small, dry herb and flower seed, especially borage on large scales? There's the collection of borage seed I've always found challenging because the seed drops out a few a day over a long period of time. So when I have harvested, I've tried to grab it and hang the whole plant. And in terms of, small herb seeds and flower seeds, you've done pretty small stuff in the Winnow wizard, yeah, Mark?
Yeah, I haven't found one that's too small. Artemisia yarrow on the low sitting, it winnows really nicely. I would just say, if you do a lot of very small seeds, get the right screens. Very narrow slotted screens. For yarrow, it's actually a 6 by 36, 36 wires per inch screen. Will let those little yarrow seeds through and take virtually everything else out. But yes, the right screens for tiny seeds are important.
Somebody here has a Zigzag Cleaner. They've cleaned an extraordinary amount of seeds of all sizes through every season. It's a lot of undead monkey work. Has anybody come up with a small adjustable auger feed innovation for the Zigzag? Any ideas? Thank you. Has anybody on this call added a hopper to the Zigzag Cleaner? That is what I found was missing on that piece of equipment. Somebody is curious about separating wild oats from barley seed, oats from buckwheat. That's funny. I do have some experience. I used the Clipper 224. We actually went to a farm 2 years ago and we cleaned up a bunch of cover crop seed and we kept together peas, buckwheat, and oats. This year we went back and they were saying, it works fine for cover crop, but we actually want to plant the oats for the cows. Can you separate out the buckwheat and peas? And yeah, just having the right size screen did a fine job of that. The oats are a very different size of seed than the buckwheat, so it was definitely possible. That answered the questions. I have an antique fanning mill. In my opinion, a grain size mill is too large for anything but multi-bushels. Screens are very expensive too. Screens can be very expensive, yes. Somebody was saying that they couldn't find the price of the Winnow wizard on the website. Mark, do you have just sort of a rough a rough price on what it would cost to purchase, or?
Yeah, I did post that in the chat. The current price for 3/4 horsepower is US dollars 31.50, 32.50 for the 1 horsepower, plus crating and shipping, which to Canada is fairly high. Most Canadian shipments at this point are somewhere 4,400, 4,500 total US dollars. I have one going to the Yukon that's closer to 5,000 US dollars here in a couple months. So it really depends on distance and shipping.
Okay, cool, that's great. Oh, somebody mentioned here, that's true, I have done this. Radish seed in a bucket with a chain attached to a paint paddle for a cordless drill works great. That's one of my favorite threshing methods for anything. It does kind of work in a pinch. Good source of screens for Canada, like the herringbone. We've ordered seeds through Seedboro, which are in the States. The only seed, the companies up here that provide similar equipment, I believe, ship from them often as well. Can somebody, I'm actually not sure what a herringbone is. Herringbone screen?
See if I can come up with a picture, but it's a metal slot, perforated oval slot in the screen, except that the slots are alternating like a herringbone. The direction of them, which helps the seeds to slide through faster. I don't think it improves the screening at all. A non-herringbone slot of the same size would work well too.
It's a question about a bicycle powered thresher. I'm getting students this year. I had somebody design me a bicycle powered thresher, but again, they didn't have a lot of experience actually cleaning seeds, so it wasn't a great design. But I'm sure there are some out there for sure. There is one. I'll try to post a link to it, but there's a great DIY design for a bike powered thresher. I'm looking at getting one built here, although to be honest, I'm probably going to put an electric motor on it, maybe have the bike as an option. But how do you break down carrot umbels?
David?
Yeah.
Je sais qu'au Québec, les jardins de Catherine, ils ont construit
I know that in Quebec, Jardin Catherine developed a thresher, and they're piloting. They're planning over here.
Oh, great. If you have any info about that you could throw into the chat, Hugo, that would be great. Yeah, so a question about carrot umbels. You got some experience threshing carrot seed, Mark?
I do not. Carrots are something we can't grow here because of Queen Anne's lace.
Ah, right, okay.
So
Yeah, so we've grown carrot seeds for sure. Tricky. I know that what we're looking into right now is a debearder for carrot seeds. That seems to be the most challenging part. So the carrots have the tiny little almost hair-like things around it. You know, the more, if you grab all the umbels and you throw it in together and you thresh it all together in carrot seeds, you get all these little sticks that you have to clean out, which is not impossible to do. It can be done. But for smaller lots, I actually break the seed off of the umbels as carefully as I can to avoid getting the sticks in. I did find that the clipper worked fairly well for carrot seeds, and it almost acts as a debearder as it shakes the screens a little bit anyway. Any advice for working with amaranth? I find it threshes fairly well, and I think the Winnow does a great job of cleaning it. I'll let people read through the chat, but there's some other suggestions about places to get screens in here. And some suggestions about, yeah, thanks, Mark, how to clean amaranth. If anybody on the call has, is working on building your own equipment, we'd love to hear about it. I know that at out here, we are looking at doing a DIY thresher, air separator sort of building project. We were going to kind of videotape the building of a reverse air separator and just share that with people and potentially have a couple times during that process to meet up and have people ask, do some problem solving. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free to get a hold of me at Farm Folk City Folk. Oh yes, and somebody's listed the seed barrel on the website and herringbone screens. Oh, thanks for that. There's also a link there on the bike-powered thresher as well. Oh, and there's a link to a herringbone debearder. I am not seeing any more questions in the chat here, but feel free to flag them if I've missed anything or ask it again.
We have one raised hand here.
Correct.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you, Mark. I'm gonna, the number that finishes by 4415, it's all yours.
Yeah. Hello.
We can hear you
Can
all
you
right.
hear me
Go
all
ahead.
right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate the knowledge sharing. I'm getting into small amounts of grain, heritage varieties, and it's a real pain to have this in between of, going from 30 grams of seed, maybe up to 20 pounds, then up to, let's say, 500 pounds, because it's not good for a combine. It's not good for, a lot of stuff. A lot of it has hulls on it. So just trying to maybe gain insight on, I've heard, the bucket threshing works okay up to a point. I have 2 fanning mills that I'm kind of retrofitting that sort of work. Sort of playing around with a little dehuller that I saw on, it's hosted on some university website, but it's just cracking things more so than dehulling. So yeah, I was just hoping to gain some insight just to bridge that gap from, needing maybe 150 pounds of seed just to do an acre, and, but needing to manage it. So yeah, thanks.
If anybody has comments on that, it's challenging to know, yeah, how to best scale up and which pieces of equipment to use. And I'll say another thing about all of these pieces of equipment is they don't make you an expert cleaner just when you buy them. They all take a little bit of practice, and it's an art and science to using all of these things. And so, it might be that one person uses a piece of equipment that's designed for smaller lots, but it works really well for them for larger lots. And the place that they would scale up and go to another piece of equipment would be different than somebody else. I don't know if that captures an answer for you, or.
One challenge that we've had with a grower who's been trying to scale up grains has been that his wheat and his rye were kind of mixed in the lot, and because the seed is the same size, it's very difficult to clean, and so he was inquiring about for an optic cleaner. And one of the local seed companies is in the process of buying one.
Yeah, those are not cheap. We're lucky actually around the Lower Mainland in British Columbia. I'll add a link to the chat, but Kwantlen University actually has a seed lab that is open to the public, and people can book it and come in and use any of the equipment. They have germ chambers and reverse air separators, and they actually also have an optical sorter, and a technician to help clean seeds there. So great resource. If you're in the Lower Mainland, feel free to reach out to them. I'll put a link in the chat.
Yeah, that's a good point, David, because perhaps the person that joined in through his phone could see if any university or agricultural research center in their area have equipment that they can rent or send their seed lot to.
Thanks. That's pretty good advice. Thank you so much.
David, I propose we wait a few more extra minutes to see if Thomas is joining, and if not, I'll just play the video.
Okay, for sure. There's some there's some comments here. Local seed cleaning co-ops may have a color sorter too. Turner, I'm not sure which location you're in, but if anybody knows of other resources like that in their area, feel free to post it in the chat. I did put a link in there to the KPU seed lab. It's kpu.ca/seeds. So there's a question here. What consideration should a small-scale vegetable market gardener have in saving business? I'm going to interpret that as what considerations if you're adding seed production into market gardening. Maybe that was the question.
Or perhaps around equipment. What equipment is relevant when you're starting off?
Yeah, I mean, I think really the equipment that's relevant is the ones that work best for you. And I think it's important probably to scale up as your seed production scales up. So you don't need to go and buy huge pieces of equipment when you're first starting. I know longtime seed growers on the west coast here, they still use an air compressor and Rubbermaid totes to clean all their seeds. So there's lots of ways to do it. When I think of incorporating it into a market gardening business, yeah, I mean, I farmed for a long time. We know that the margins on farming are very slim, and anytime you can save time, you're increasing your bottom line, your profit. And so I think any of these piece of equipment that save you time is really important for adding something new into your business model, whatever that happens to be. So, you know, Mark's story of going from wild garden seed with like 6 people standing around all day shaking seeds to being able to drop those seeds in a hopper and go and do other work, that is probably a huge economic savings, and that's the kind of thing that would enable you, I think, to add, you know, a new crop like seeds into your crop rotation. There's a question here: would it be possible to hear criticisms of each tool in the trailer? Yeah. Yeah, again, I think I'll just repeat that these are all, they take a lot of practice, and it's a bit of an art, and I find some days are better than others, and there's often the chance to complain about some of the equipment. Let's see. I mean, some of the criticisms, I think we've spoken about it already. The zigzag air separator, it works okay, and there's no hopper. So really, I think the piece of equipment the type of things that I look for in a piece of equipment, especially doing the final cleaning, is something that you can walk away from, something that you can drop your seeds in, turn on, set it up, and then come back and have your seeds cleaned. So any of the ones that you have to be sitting there for, I'd criticize as a bit of a waste of time. Some of the things like threshing, you actually do need to be pretty present. Hugo, did you want to?
Yeah, I would also add that how farmers organize or how seed companies organize is also a big component, because you might not need to buy equipment if a farm that's half an hour or 45 minutes or an hour away has it. And so it's good to call farms that are doing some seed cleaning around in your area and try to be complementary to them, and find ways to, if you have equipment, think of ways that you can provide this equipment with a fee for service, so that other seed growers and seed companies can use them as well. It's been exciting to see in Quebec, Les Jardins de l'Écoumène have really scaled up their seed equipment this past year. And Tournesol Farm are also making their seed equipment available to seed growers who are interested in cleaning their seed lots. I see some heads nodding. Are there any last comments or questions, David, on your end?
I'm just looking through here. I did, somebody asked about the thresher from Japan. I just put a link in the chat to that one. It's Sassagawa paddy rice thresher. There's somebody says here they're in the Alberta prairies. I am in a small town and the seed plant has a, oh, I see it. The seed plant has a color sorter. Is that, I'm just curious, is that something that people are, the seed plant has a color sorter, is that something you can book to use? Is there a cost associated with that? How does access work? This was a comment from Turner. I'd just be curious to know. Somebody said, so many great links. Will you be sharing this with the registrants after the webinar? We can send this out. You can also save the chat towards the end of the webinar if you want. I believe there's 3 little dots at the bottom of your chat box, and you should be able to save the chat. It'll save it on your own desktop, and then you can have the links yourself.
David, I think Thomas has joined us.
Okay, perfect.
Allô Thomas, tu nous entends?
Thomas, can you hear us? You just need to turn your microphone on. Oh, hi. Sorry about the delay. You're not late. It's that we jumped ahead an hour. That's how come. It was supposed to be at 6 o'clock, right? But the thing is that our time changed. We have a time change. Now I'm going to hide my screen, and then I'll ask you to talk about your work. And then you can click on the interpretation button at the bottom of the screen and pick French. That way, if anyone wants to ask a question in English, you'll hear the interpretation into French.
All the other participants who are hoping to hear Thomas in English, don't forget to click on the interpretation button on the language of your choice. Donc, je vais partager mon écran.
Now let me share my screen.
À toi, Thomas.
Thomas, over to you.
Bonsoir, merci pour l'invitation.
Good afternoon, and thanks for inviting me.
Du coup, on est maraîcher à ferme de l'Israël avec ma compagne.
We're market gardeners, and we've been doing this for about a decade.
Sur la semence,
we have a training session on seeds.
Juste avant qu'on s'installe, et
before we got started. And out of that came a group of market farmers. There's about 30 farmers that are trading seeds once a year. We plan out the year. We do our seed trades. And with this trading group,
au début nos semences chez
We
Yannick
used
Loubet,
to go to Yannick Loubet's place to do our sorting, our cleaning, and we
machines
copied his machines.
qui sont disponibles à l'atelier paysan. C'est les plans, voilà, qui sont.
So those machines are now available to our group of farmers.
Ça, c'est pour notre ferme, le groupe d'échange.
So that's the trading group.
Je vois pas tout l'écran. Okay.
Let's see, I can't see the whole screen.
Est-ce que tu peux présenter rapidement ce que c'est l'atelier paysan pour ceux qui sont au Canada?
Can you tell us what is the Atelier de Paysan for Canadians? Well, that is a cooperative
de formateurs et d'autoconstructeurs,
trainers and self-builders
mettent à disposition une multitude de plans en open source.
who
Soit
we put out a lot of open source plans or adaptations, or these are peasants that maybe created them themselves, and
les lieux,
they hold training sessions around on the site of production. They have a mobile workshop with that can go around in a trailer. They've and they can
de ces outils. Et nous,
and
c'est ce qu'on a
they
fait avec le
takes a
réseau
few people 7 to 10 days to build these tools. That's what we did with the exchange network. There were about 15, 20 farms then. Now we're about 30, and we held this training over a week-long period.
Sur une semaine, et du coup là on a fait trois machines, on a fait 3 colonnes.
We built 3 machines, 3 symmetric air column machines, and 3 threshers, and we funded that collectively 100, 200 euros each or so, thereabouts. And the machine is at our farm right now because we're fairly central, and so we also need a place where we can hold it, where it can be kept. There has to be space around it so we can move around it, because there's a lot of dust. It puts out a lot of dust. So not everybody can house this machine. This machine cost 1,500 euros.
Le gros ventilo qui sert de soufflerie, du vibrateur, de plein de choses.
Metal vibrator, and there were some things that we couldn't do ourselves during that week. We contracted out the stainless steel parts.
Est-ce que tu veux que je joue la vidéo?
Do you want me to put on the video now? Yeah, why don't you go ahead? Sure. All right then.
David, tu me dis si le son sort de votre côté.
David, tell me if you can hear sound on your side. So that's a densimetric sorting column. Structure, steel, assembly of the structures. The wooden parts, the boxes where the seats come out. On the stainless steel parts. Wiring, the motors. Adjustment. The vibrator, the meshes, and all the rest. And commissioning, getting it going.
Vous m'entendez?
On
Can
t'entend.
you hear me still?
Ouais.
Sure.
Ben voilà, c'était un petit résumé de la
Well,
semaine.
that basically shows you what happened in that building week. We put a lot of effort into that.
Bons bricoleurs. Après, même les non-bricoleurs et bricoleuses trouvent leur place. Voilà, on savait pas.
Everybody, even people who aren't especially handy, were able to get into it, get into the act. Learned a bit of electronics as well. We did 3 of these in 1 week, so that's pretty. That's a lot. That's a tall order, but 1 or 2, sure, you could do that if you're motivated to do it. And it's very precise work. 1,500 euros.
Que le collègue semencier, la personne qui nous accueillait pour trier.
The interpreter, sorry, but there's a problem with the sound.
Donc, c'est.
16 000 euros.
Ouais, ouais, ouais.
Did you say 16,000 euros?
Le prix que, pour laquelle vous l'avez construit et le prix neuf, c'est ça?
Ouais.
So you have to compare that to the price that you paid to build it. It cost us 10 times less. It's really worth it. And it's very well sorted seed, ready to market, or for exchanges between professionals as we are. And among all of these, all of the seed equipment that is found on the market that a seed farm might need, why would you want that in particular? We listened to the experience of the person who trained us, the person who had that machine. We went to their place. We were able to do all kinds of seeds, whether it's carrots, lettuce, and you can go through it several times. It's very, you can even calibrate it for carrot seed. So you can do very fine scale work. You can do, if you can also adjust to things to make sure that the germination will be very high. It would be good also to have a cellular sorter. Sometimes it's difficult with carrot seeds in particular, but the cullen does terrific work. Again, problems with the sound, difficult to hear. We would just need to have that cellular sorter. I would suggest that we go through the other photos and you can tell us a little more about each piece of equipment. Or the equipment itself, that is. Okay, so this is the trough with the hopper. And on the trough is a vibrator. There's a feeder which feeds the seeds in at a very constant rate. We went for a vibrator instead because a feeder was 1,000 euros, and whereas this machine only cost 180 euros, this particular device. So it's much cheaper, 6 times less. And when you put the vibration on the trough,
on l'a changé du modèle initial, on l'a mis sur un axe et elle peut s'incliner vers l'avant pour que
and now what happens is sometimes the seeds go backwards and you want to be able to, so we put it on an axis so that it can be tipped forward to make sure that the seeds keep going forward. Again, these
loge en question.
Is this the trough in question? It is. Well, since it goes through a vibrator,
c'est des cils en bloc. On a mis à différents endroits pour éviter que la vibration se répercute partout.
We wanted to damp the vibration, so we did that.
À gauche, en général, c'est.
On the left, you can see the fan and a key slot where you can open it up. You can speed it up or slow it down right there. And it sorts, obviously, the densest parts go to the bottom. We increase the ventilation just until we get the first bucket full. And then you start seeing good seeds, and we separate them until, and we try to change the settings just until we get it right. Somebody from Oregon is asking, well, you see the question in the chat. It's a rotational movement with little discs or little balls. It consumes 40 watts. We placed this vibrator in the workshops. They changed the direction, and they didn't need to tip it anymore. So you can actually feed it with the vibrator. Do you have a photo of the vibrator? I'd like to share it. Yeah, I'll send it. I'll send both different types of models, the one with the ventilator, the one with the fan, and the one with the vibrator. There you go. This here is the little control panel with the buttons for the vibration and for ventilation. So this way you can increase the strength of the fan. And we figure out what settings to use it on for different types of seeds. So that's a little overview. This is some of the smaller equipment that we use. So we're able to do a certain volume, but obviously there's still some work to be done. We use this small equipment here, handheld equipment, for certain types of seeds still, and we use all these fans to dry them on the drying racks. Just quickly on the sieves, the screens in the column.
Débris possible, c'est-à-dire qu'on essaie d'enlever un maximum de paille. Du coup, des fois, il y a des tamis.
We try to avoid having debris. So this helps us. We installed something there to avoid this build-up.
Qui n'a pas impliqué l'atelier paysan, c'est vraiment vous qui avez monté ça pour vos tests de germination, et je pense que
this is really you who set this up to do your germination tests. This wasn't at the farm. And you adapted this fridge in order to be able to do that. Can you talk to us about what we can see here in your process? It's pretty simple. It's just a normal fridge. You have to put a light inside that doesn't produce any heat, so you can use a little filament heater at the bottom that you can't really see here. You can see the little wire here. We have a little probe.
Et puis voilà. Et l'humidité, en fait, on la gère.
And the humidity is controlled inside the petri dishes. You can control the atmosphere in the fridge, but then the blotting sheets inside of the petri dishes. That's how you control the humidity here. So we did this with the our seed production company that we work with. This is all the protocols here for germination.
Pour la construction de notre groupe, la semencerie, et voilà, ils sont en plein moment d'essaimage en fait au niveau de leur savoir-faire, et ils nous ont.
And the seed production company, they have a very good knowledge of these systems.
Voilà,
and you mean substrates here in terms of your germination protocol, the type of soil that's used.
C'est que ça va pas germer, il faut s'arrêter là.
Temperature alternating between different temperatures, so it's able. This we're able to control with this system. Do you have any other comments on your other slides? Or on this side? It's very simple to do and to manage.
Je pense que j'avais ça, c'était la dernière photo.
I think that's the last photo. This one here. So we saw the petri dishes. These are little transparent boxes, and you can see on the left our little corrugated, little crinkled papers that we use. That's good for large seeds and for you know, for example, sunflowers, etc. Little laboratory boxes. We use the plastic boxes at the beginning, but these ones are more practical, and it's excellent for controlling the humidity. Excellent. I'm going to stop staring my screen for a little bit, and I'm going to ask my colleague David if he has any questions or comments. We have 5 minutes left.
On a 5 minutes pour ceux et celles qui ont des questions.
For anybody who has any questions for Thomas. In connection with the construction of with building their equipment on their farm and how they use it. We have a lot of questions for Mark on cleaning seeds, large quantities of seeds.
I don't know if we have any questions. I don't see them, but are there some questions that were asked earlier that around cleaning specific types of seeds, where we perhaps would like to have a complimentary answer?
And there was some question about some threshing questions. I don't know if you have threshing equipment, Thomas. And I'm curious to know, do you have an electrician on hand, or does your team just figure that sort of stuff out? Like the controllers, are those variacs, are they dimmer switches?
Pour l'assemblage des boîtiers, en fait, je peux répondre?
Oui, vas-y, bien sûr.
Ok. Non, électricien, en fait, c'est dans le groupe de maraîchers qu'on est, il y en a un qui soude bien. Y en
With
a
our budget, we don't use an electrician. We don't need somebody who with deep knowledge to make the connections. And it can't be an impediment to construction, so we tried to figure it out. Maybe there are other questions. I can take another one.
You had a question with threshing?
Yeah, somebody had asked about threshing radish seeds. I don't know if you have experience with that, but do you have some suggestions or equipment you use for that?
Pour le moment, la seule batteuse qu'on a, c'est celle que vous voyez aussi sur l'atelier paysan.
The only thresher that we have right now is the one that we have in the atelier paysan.
Donc, alors, il se trouve en plus que le radis, on a beaucoup de mal à le
With
faire.
radish, we have a lot of trouble here with pests. We are not able to have large batches yet, but we put them through the little thresher, and it's quite long to do. There's a type of thresher that we use, and I can share the link with Hugo. And we've seen that at different seed companies that we've visited. And it's connected, and it threshes everything all at the same time through a big column. And so those are very effective.
Okay, great. I think there is a link. Somebody just put up the links to some of that equipment in the chat. Are there any other questions?
I saw that Mark answered saying that the motor that is used by Thomas is pretty similar to what he's using with the Winnow Wizard, about 30 watts. Est-ce qu'il y avait des dernières questions pour Thomas ou des derniers commentaires?
Any last questions or comments for Thomas?
J'ai pas tout bien compris, mais
I didn't understand everything, but
non, je sais pas trop quoi ajouter.
I'm not sure what to add, actually. I heard about this Winnow Wizard, though.
On veut bien des plans aussi, s'il y en a qui traînent quelque part.
We want to get the blueprints to that if they're available.
Mark, are your plans on your website?
Yes, they are, but let me put the plans in the chat here too in a second.
J'ai une question pour toi, Thomas. Combien de variétés de
Après,
semences?
J'ai également vu une batteuse intéressante en DEI sur Farm Hack.
I saw a very interesting thresher. It might be one of you who Farm Hack is the website. And bike thresher. I downloaded the plans and I didn't build it out, but it can be very good for beans and different types of seeds.
Do you know who's shared the? Pardon, Thomas, tu parles sur Farm Hack, tu parles de quelle machine d'une batteuse?
Which machine are you talking about on Farm Hack, Thomas? It's the bike thresher. There's several models. I can't remember what it was called. It's cylindrical, and there's several little chains depending on how you want to thresh. I can see that it's almost time. Thank you so much for your patience. Considering the technical problems that we encountered, please share your feedback with us with this little poll, which takes just 30 seconds. Just want to understand if we met your expectations in terms of learning, quality, and relevance.
Vingtaine de secondes pour
So just take 20 seconds, please, to respond to the poll.
I did just saw that Thomas, the bike thresher you were talking about, I believe is on a Farm Hack website, and there's a couple links. I just re-added it to the chat bar there. I'm pretty sure that's the one you were talking about. And that's one we're going to hopefully have built out here.
C'est dans la section chat, normalement, tu verras
It's in the chat section. You can see at the bottom of the screen if you... I don't see it. It's in the chat. You have to scroll down. I'll let you know if it's that one. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, has anybody here built that one before? Because we're just about to have it built. I'd be curious to know if anybody's used it. Guess not. We'll let you know then. Oh, somebody has one. How does it work for you?
En tout cas, je pense que c'est une machine intéressante. Et, pour faire des fois,
Very good machine, especially for carrots, for different types of lettuce, and for it has a little bucket with chains, and then there's a type of drill at the top. I can actually share a link.
Evelisa, I don't know if you want to jump in and share a few words about the bicycle-powered thresher.
Yeah, I had a neighbor build it for me. I feel like it has a lot of potential, but I am just drying stuff kind of just hanging in a hoop house or in a shed. I don't have heat or humidity control. So I find in the fall, it's hard to get stuff dry enough for it to work really well.
Thank you, Evelisa.
Bah, ouais. Pour la semence, c'est un petit peu le secret de l'extraction. Il faut vraiment que ça soit très
sec.
That's
the secret of extraction. It has to be extremely dry when you're extracting the seeds. That's a key.
And I see that Seth in the East Coast is also building one. Folks, thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to see you at our next webinar on flower seed production. It's going to be March 30th, 2022. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to follow up with your regional coordinator. And if you have any feedback, don't hesitate to send a little note to David and myself. Thank you once again. Thank you, Mark, David, and Thomas for sharing some of your knowledge today. Have an excellent day.